Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Relationship Schools podcast. I'm Jayson Gaddis here with my lovely wife, Ellen.
Hello.
All right, Ellen, welcome back. Good to have you here.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Today, we want to talk about parenting. So before you fast forward this or move on to the next episode because you're not a parent, I think this is very instructive for you to reflect on your own life being parented, because everybody listening was parented.
Mm-hmm.
So as you listen, if you're not a parent, you might just think of that context, because I think it's going to help you have better adult relationships.
Yeah, to understand your family and sort of the family culture, so to speak, that you came from, maybe.
Yeah, and I think it'll help you apply something you're learning or about to learn here into just adult relationships. Because this is, I love thinking about when I teach adult relationship stuff, I often refer to parent-child dynamics because that's where we learned how to do relationship.
Yeah. It's also good for people who think they might have children one day.
Exactly.
Or even if your kids have grown, if you're reflecting back on that time, all of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in this episode, we want to talk about our 6 best parenting tips. And this is going to be kind of a high level of each one. We won't drill down too deep into each one. Some we've already talked about in past podcasts, and some, depending on how you like this, if you want us to drill down into something deeper here, we can do that. We'll create a podcast on that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So just to zoom out still, a lot of parents, I think, just want to normalize. They fall into kind of survival mode parenting. And also, we had kids and I had no idea it would be this hard. And maybe I'm going to farm it out to childcare or schools. And so I don't have to be that involved because it's kind of overwhelming and it's super triggering. And so I just want to, depending on where you're coming at this, we're wanting you to prioritize relationship a little more in your parenting. And so you'll see that theme in all of these 6 parenting tips.
Yeah. And our tips are based on our own experience as parents. And then also in, from all the people we've studied with and things we've learned over many years working with people and parents and families. And so it's sort of a combination of all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So tip number 1, self-reflection. Ellen, do you want to dive into this one?
Sure. So this comes, I think, from the attachment science research, which shows that to have a secure attachment between a parent and child, one of the key, if not the most important ingredient in that is the parent's capacity to self-reflect. So we feel like, obviously we're proponents of creating secure attachments, and we've unpacked what that is and why that's important elsewhere. But basically it's really this feeling that, someone has your back, people are going to be there, even if things get messy or difficult, the relationship is there and good and things will be repaired. It provides a sense of confidence and trust in the world and in people and others and in ourselves. So it's a really important quality to develop in our relationships, the sense of security. And so self-reflection as parents is really the key component, I think, that helps make that happen. So being able to self-reflect and make meaning on our own life, our own important relationship experiences, on the ways we were parented, as we integrate and create an understanding for ourselves and make meaning of our life's experiences, that's the process of self-reflection. That's what that gives us. And that's something that really helps support parenting and attachment.
Yeah. So we want you to reflect on how you were parented and notice how that might impact your ability to parent, whatever kind of home you grew up in. Self-reflection means that we start to make meaning out of our history and develop what the attachment scientists call a coherent narrative. That it's, yep, this happened when I was 5, and this happened when I was 15, and this happened when I got into relationships when I was in adolescence. And therefore, this is what all that means. And this is how I do relationship and how I'm going to do relationship better, type of thing. So it's like putting pieces together, developing a coherent narrative of your history and your life. And that's just, that kind of self-reflection is, I think, fascinating. It's fun. And then we get to learn, like, wow, we're learning about ourselves, and then we get to apply the learning. Cool.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. I want to give one quick example.
Yeah.
We sent our son to a week-long summer camp, and it's edgy for us. And both of us got sent to summer camp. And it's an opportunity for Ellen and I to reflect on that time in our life. So we send our current child to summer camp, and we can go, oh, I went to summer camp once. What was that like for me? What was the good, the bad, and the ugly of that experience? And how can I support my child in going to summer camp in a good way? Versus maybe I'm just unconsciously not sending my kid to summer camp because I had such a bad experience, or wanting to send my kid to summer camp because I just want them out of my house. There's no self-reflection there, Okay, number 2, second best parenting tip that we have is to know your values and fan the flame of their values. What do we mean by that?
Why don't you start?
Okay. A lot of parents parent from their values, which makes sense, and then put their values on their children. And that could be beliefs about the world. It could be things that you value in terms of hobbies and activities. It could be a religious experience. And it's understandable. And I think any parent wants to instill good values in their children. And so they try to take the best of their own values and put them on their kids. And I think there's a health to that. Where it starts to cross over into unhelpful areas that actually could really compromise your kid's development is when you're wanting them to live out your unlived life, or you're wanting them to live like you live life.
Yeah. And so I guess we're speaking to this sort of other place somewhere between, yes, we want our values guiding us as parents and charting the course for our family. We want to know what our values are and then be able to create a life that supports them. And then we want to give that to our kids because obviously we think that's good stuff. And then we also have to be looking out for our kids' values, because they're going to start coming online, their own values, the ways that they move through the world, the things that they're drawn to, the ways of being that are inherent to them. Those are going to start to emerge within, I don't know, a few years, somewhere in childhood. And we also, our job is also to really support our kids in who they are, which might be in some ways really different than us. And while we still may want to, bring them into our values that we're taking a stand for in our family, we also want to be helping them really just become fully who they are, which again could be really different than us. And how can we as parents really support that? We think that's important.
Yeah. So let's look at a couple of examples. So we've worked with people, for example, I'm thinking of a client right now who knew from, when he was 5 or 6 years old that he was gay. And yet he grew up in a religious household where that wasn't okay. Their religion, their particular religion was anti-gay. Like, that's not the kingdom to God does not, that doesn't support that. So that kid had to stuff, right, those feelings, and they weren't acceptable when they started to come out. So that's just a kind of a classic example of parents projecting their values and saying, nope, that's not okay. Who you are is not okay. You need to be like us, and you need to drink this Kool-Aid, and this is how we're doing it in this family. That's an extreme example of that's extremely damaging, right? I'm thinking of another example. I often tell the story in the deep Psychology of Intimate Relationships course. And we unpack all of these, by the way, in the deeper course, if you're ever interested in taking that course. I grew up in a sports positive kind of family, and I was a sensitive kid, and I liked sports, but I didn't love sports the way my dad did. But I ended up injecting his values and trying to be an athlete. And when you try to be someone you're not, like any kid tries because they want acceptance from the big people, they're going to fail, and it's not going to be very fulfilling. So I was never a champion because I was living out my parents' values, not my own.
Yeah, it's good examples.
Yeah. So you might reflect, using our tip number 1, on your own family values, what you grew up with, and were your intrinsic inherent values supported, or were they made wrong or sort of dismissed in service of or in favor of the family kind of program? All right. Number 3.
This one is about developing relational strength and security. So we mentioned secure attachment in the beginning because of the self-reflection tip. And really, again, we're coming back to making relationships a priority in your family, basically. And we want parents to think of the quality of their relationships with their kids and with each other, and to continue to work on developing the health and well-being of those relationships.
Yeah, it's paramount if you want to be an awesome family and just rock it out in life as a team, as this cool little family unit, whether you're 5 of you or 3 of you or whatever. You've got to value relationships. And Ellen and I teach a lot about secure relationships and what goes into that. We've done many podcasts on that, so you might go listen to those. But we know that families where their relational stress is high and where conflicts get unresolved and where there's lots of trauma or neglect or abuse or whatever, those families obviously just don't do as well, and they're super compromised. So the way to not be that family is to value relationships and have that be a part of your family culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where you talk about your relationships with each other. There's just a lot of skills and capacities in relationship that you're developing along the way. That's going to serve your family and also your kids in life, for sure. Being able to, be part of groups, handle people better, develop meaningful relationships. It's the family is really where we learn a lot about how all that works. And part of that's through our own experience in relationship in our families, but also through observing the people around us. And we'll talk more about that later in this podcast too.
Yeah. In one of the podcasts I did with Aaron Huey, he talked about one of the best family rituals you can have is having dinner together every single night and being very structured about it. And then having your family kind of vibe, whether it's questions you ask each other or kind of debriefing the day. We do that in our family, and it's a really wonderful time to be together where there's a lot of relational interactions and just connection going on versus kids sitting at the table hurrying up to leave because they, relationships not valued. Hey folks, good news. My new book, Getting to Zero, How to Work Through Conflict in Your High Stakes Relationship, is available for pre-order. And here's what's cool. If y'all support me and you pre-order it, you get some cool stuff. Like I just recorded a 4-part mini video series on how to work through conflict, highlighting some of the chapters in the book. You can also get chapter 1 for free if you want to start digging in before the book comes out October 5th. So go to gettingtozerobook.com, gettingtozerobook.com. And thanks for being a listener and soon to be a reader of my new book. All right, number 4.
Number 4 is getting really good at the conflict repair cycle. So, we hold the view that conflict is inevitable. It's a normal, healthy part of relationship. And it's actually a really important part of developing secure relationships because the repair process, the repair part of the conflict repair cycle is really what develops our sense of security in our relationship. So conflict without repair is obviously over time really stressful and not good for any of us. But conflict with repair builds a lot of resilience in us and relational capacities and capacities for stress, a lot of things. So we want people to get really good at it and be really efficient and really embrace the process of conflict and repair, that they both go together and they are important.
Yeah. So here's a quick assessment of your family of origin. You could ask it first there, and then if you're a parent, you could ask it of your current family, which is, did conflict get repaired in my family growing up? Did it get cleaned up and dealt with well, effectively? And if not, that's a family that didn't value relationships. It did to the degree that it did, but not in the way we're talking about it, right? And so your current family, you might be like, wow, do we know how to move through a conflict repair cycle as a family? Are we teaching our kids this? Are we modeling it as parents? And if you can't say yes to that, again, no problem. It means you probably haven't valued relationship and relationship learning and relationship psychology enough yet. So it's just a nudge here, an encouragement to do that, because conflict repair cycle, as I say in my new book, it's very learnable. It's a learnable skill any of us can do. And for a deeper dive on that, obviously, you can go get my book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some people, I think, tolerate lack of repair or a lot of conflict, or just like, a lot of unresolved conflict, whatever, because that's just what they know. And they don't really know that you can actually get back to feeling even better with your close people by moving through conflict in a complete way. So we really encourage, like Jayson's saying, that this is learnable, and don't tolerate, hours or let alone days of, disconnection and bad feelings and, things just not working out. Like, we want people to be learning how to repair quicker and faster, because we need that energy for our lives and for each other.
Yeah. And the download that often gets shared with children from parents who are under-resourced and stressed out is, go to your room and don't come out until you're better, basically. And that's that's their version of the conflict repair cycle, is come back when you're in a better place, because I don't want to deal with you. That's obviously not the conflict repair cycle done well. But families do that and they tolerate it, and that becomes how they operate. And the big downside there is that if that's how it was modeled to you and that's how it went down, you're going to have little to no capacity in a grown-up relationship to stay in it, to work through it, to come back around until you learn. All right. Fifth best parenting tip, be a leader. And so the parents are in charge of the home, not the kids. It's actually not a holacracy. It's not a democracy where, hey, we're all just going to vote if, little Joey, who's 2 years old, can stay up later tonight, or whatever. It's not like that. It's, you run the show, and this is your house, and it's your program. Now, you can, of course, be a dictator about it and be really mean about it and use fear to kind of control the vibe in your home, which obviously we don't recommend. But we're talking about the kind of leader that Caesar from The Dog Whisperer, who I watched years ago with Ellen, and we loved Caesar because he had this term called calm and assertive. That, the pack leader of a group of dogs or wild animals is the pack leader is calm and assertive, and everybody kind of knows to follow the pack leader. And there's something about the term calm and assertive that I love for parenting also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've never even had a dog, and we loved that show because we thought his way of working with the owners of the animals was so brilliant. And because it was like kind of all about fixing the parents in a way, like the owners of the animals, not the animal wasn't really the problem, it was the way the whole system was functioning. And so that's a way of how we like to look at things too. It's like, it's not that the kids are so impossible or difficult. It's let's look at this whole system, and let's look at the leadership in the system, which is the parents, and how are they doing? How are they just doing as people in their lives? Because life is complex and difficult. Are they getting enough support? And then how are they working together? And what's their way of leading this family? And is it what they really want it to be? And so we think it just goes miles for parents to really look at that and to take the leadership position, because your kids need you to. Your kids need leadership. They don't want to be in charge of all the decisions of like what they're going to do that day, or just the myriad choices and decisions we make all day. Little kids really get anxious around having too much to decide.
Yeah.
So, and you can look up, there's other parenting people we've learned that from too, like Kim John Payne, and is one that I love for that. So, and so really we want the parents leading and the kids weigh in. Their feelings matter. They're heard. They're cared about, but the parents are in charge.
Yeah. Tina Payne Bryson is another one. And that episode, so both Kim John Payne and Tina Bryson have been on the podcast. And if you go listen to those, you'll hear a story from Tina Bryson, for example, of parenting her youngest son. And when it was bedtime, and how he kind of threw a fit, and she just was calm and assertive and didn't let his emotions run the show.
Mm-hmm. And didn't invalidate him either.
Yeah.
Right. There's this way that we feel like it's either we go with the feelings or we ignore, override them. And there's something else where we make space for that. And we still follow through on what we as parents believe is best for their health and well-being, really.
Yeah. We were with someone a while back that was, raising a young child, and child's about, I don't know, 4-ish. And they couldn't do anything because the 4-year-old didn't want to do anything. And that's an example of the child's emotions and being the leader, being the boss. Mm-hmm. And these parents, I think one of them maybe felt okay about it because they could go work. The other one maybe felt kind of annoyed and put out by it. Well, we can't because, little Joey is upset. And guys, when you're doing that and little Joey is running the show and you can't live your life, that's when you're stuck in a dynamic that's not a good one.
Yeah, that's where parenting feels really, I think, exhausting and draining and more laborious than it needs to. And obviously, I just want to say, as kids get older, like our 12-year-old now, he can weigh in on things a little more. He has a little more, he can gather information himself. He has enough life experience to know some more things about what works for him and what doesn't. And so he is participating more than he did at 9 years old or 6 years old or 3 years old in things. And so gradually as they get older, they can, participate more. And still, I think, we're the leaders. And gradually over time, by the time they're 18, they're making a lot of their own decisions.
And you're setting your kid up for success by giving them challenges along the way that they can meet, that they can digest, and they can accomplish, rather than kind of coddling them, rescuing them from something difficult, because then you're going to have a kid who's 18 and can't take care of themselves, right? The whole goal is to shepherd your child into adulthood, and so they can go out in the world and be successful. You can't do that when they're leading from a very young age.
Yeah.
So this brings us to our last best parenting tip.
This one is just modeling and being the kind of person that we would love for our kids to be. So sometimes I feel like my kids are better people than me. I'm like, oh, you're like a kinder, gentler person than I am at times, which I actually feel really good about that. But ultimately, just the way we live is our biggest teaching for them. It's really not what we say. And, kids remember sort of what they saw. and what they felt, not what was said to them. And so I think this is true for your adult relationship. So your marriage or your co-parent, how that's functioning. Your kids are getting the download just by what they're seeing. Again, not what you're saying. And just how you're handling your own challenges in life, how you're learning and growing, how you're being a human being, and, at times making mistakes, cleaning them up, like all of that is really, really making a huge impression and is really what's going in the deepest. And I think that can feel like a massive responsibility as a parent, like a little overwhelming at times, because none of us are perfect. And we don't always want our kids sponging in the way we are. And they are a lot. And so the more we can, again, self-reflect, have an understanding of who we are, be able to, at times, speak to that with our kids, they will see what it's like to be an adult, making your way through the world, where it's not always perfect or easy or straightforward, but that you're finding your way.
Yeah, completely. It's a tall order. I mean, just to day in and day out be demonstrating, knowing that everything I do is going in my kids. How I talk to my wife, how I talk to myself, how I treat my body. When I have a big challenge in life, how I meet that, or I play the victim and point the finger at someone else. How much I'm looking at my phone. All of that is like going in all day long. It's like, ooh, this is it keeps me personally a lot more in integrity and sharper, I think, as a human. I imagine I would be quite a bit, I don't know, lazier or something if I wasn't a parent currently. I don't know.
I think so. I think we're like on stage way more than we want to be at times. But I felt that urgency once we had kids, that like, oh my God, it's like time to deal with some of these things that maybe I have been able to put off in myself.
Yeah. What's cool too is especially about teenagers is they start to see through your bullshit.
Right.
So if you're kind of faking it in your life, or you're in a big strategy and you're posturing over some kind of hidden pain or something, kids pick up on that and they know that. So
and your teenagers will do something to to speak to that, or
they will, or they'll act it out themselves, or something will happen to get you to look at it.
God, I know.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So be the change. I think it's just a really good end note here. So to review real quick, we've got these 6 best parenting tips: self-reflection, number 1; number 2, know your values and fan the flame of their values; number 3, value and develop relational strength and security; 4, get good at the conflict repair cycle; 5, be a leader; and 6, model the kind of kid you want to have, right? Or model the change you want to, model the person you want your child to be or become.
Mm-hmm.
And action step, Ellen. I always offer an action step here at the end, as you know. Yeah. I've got one. Maybe we can co-create it here on the spot. Using number 1, which is self-reflection, reflect on which one of these maybe is your growing edge as a human or as a parent. And just journal about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Taking one of these and going a little further with it, journaling, talking with a friend, another fellow parent. I love talking with other parents about parenting, and just what I'm learning and working on and navigating. And just going a little further, even with one of these, especially one that jumps out to you or that seems interesting, or that you haven't thought about, that too.
Yeah, and I'll underline what Ellen said there about sharing it with someone. So these action steps, I think, are more effective if you can get in relationship with someone and just talk about what you learned from this podcast or what you're learning about yourself in relationship to what we shared. Could be your partner or just a friend or your parents. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or your teenage kids.
Yeah. Your kids someday, when they're old enough.
Yeah. Okay. If you want further resources, of course, probably one of the best places, we actually, it's not a parenting class, but the deeper course, which is our relational mastery course, 9-month journey, all the parents, and there's probably a third of the students that go through that course are parents. So you don't need to be a parent at all. But of the parents that go through that course, they say it dramatically changes their relationship with their kids because they are doing all of these things, right? They're valuing relationships more. They're self-reflecting more. They're learning how to validate their kids' experience and be with them in conflict and ruptures. It's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I think that's one of the coolest bits of feedback we get about that is how the parents feel like it's helped their parenting and their kids so much to be in that course. So I feel really good about that.
Yeah. Okay. There's one more kind of bonus one I wanted to mention, Ellen.
Okay.
Just since we're winding down here, about to stop. And that is this whole notion of relationship as a path. We didn't put it on here. But your kids become mirrors for your own growth. And if you can have that kind of view that wherever your kid is stuck or wherever you're triggered by them, it's just an opportunity for you to heal maybe unfinished stuff from your history. It's an opportunity for you to integrate more, learn more, grow stronger in yourself. And then your kid's going to feel probably even more loved by you if you do that inner work as a parent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much that we're learning as we go that our kids are teaching us in a way or showing us that without even ever talking to them about it, we can address in ourselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, honey, for being here with me
today.
Thanks
for having me. I always like doing this with you.
Yeah. Okay, folks, take care. If you're in pain relationally and you need immediate support, our coaches can help you. I've trained almost 100 coaches at this point, relationship coaches that are amazing humans, and they have the chops to help you get through this hard time, this hard moment you're going through. Or if you want to actually hire a coach and have someone in your corner to continue to up-level your communication skills, your listening skills, your conflict skills, these folks are incredible, okay? So all you need to do is go to relationshipschool.com/MRC. That stands for My Relationship Coach. So relationshipschool.com/MRC. All right, if you want immediate, direct, effective help. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Share one of these videos with a friend. We want to help the planet get their act together around relationships. And you are one of them, so thank you.